3, 2.
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Jeff from Junior Hockey Advisor. Hey, we're kind of getting back onto schedule. We've been 2 broadcasts in a row in the last 2 weeks. It's super difficult this time of year to get live streams off with the tenders and the drafts and the end of the year and the playoffs for juniors, and then the recruiting and scouting trail, and then just trying to catch up and get a breath. But we're back. We're ready to go, and I've got a lot of things to cover tonight, and I honestly want to get to your questions more than what I want to discuss. But one of the things we've been doing is we're restructuring the background, the platform of Junior Hockey Advisor, and I pulled up a video today. I was looking at different videos, and we're trying to condense them, trim them down. I want to talk about one of the videos that I think is probably one of the most important videos that I put out so far from my perspective. And I'd like your comments on it too, to see what you think, because maybe I'm wrong on that. But who is this guy, Jeff Colson, talking to you? Been doing this for over 35 years. I'm a master certified coach. I've been a general manager. I've been an owner for multiple teams. I've pretty much been involved in all levels of hockey, including college hockey, NCAA, Division III, which the school is now a Division I school. But I had some fun today. I actually started breaking down, and one of the projects I'm working on right now is I'm working on a comparison of the last 20 years, excuse me, last 20, maybe 25 years. And I want to see how the effect of the ADM, the American Development Model, in the USA Hockey system, how that's working. Is it actually helped? I want to look at the National Development Program and see if that's actually helped as far as the numbers. Now, clearly we've got great numbers inside of hockey right now. I mean, the U.S. just last year, 2016, 15, I'm going back through all the different years. Great numbers. I think we're up, we're pushing 30% right now. Canada's held on to a pretty certain number in the 40s. Sweden is a consistent 8 to 10, 12% of the NHL right now as far as the first round draft picks go. And overall, those numbers stay pretty proportionate. Excuse me. What I'm concerned about and what I'm looking for is to see if the trends changed as the league has grown, because we've added a lot of teams in the NHL, and I'm not an NHL guy. This is not my area. But I also want to see where those players are all coming from. And a lot of this came from the whole Cale Makar discussion that we put up on our discussion group. Cale, Colorado, unbelievable year. He's had an unbelievable 2 or 3 year run right now, which is incredible. And as we watch this run that he's on, I've reminded everybody a couple times on the discussion group that he is a product of the AJHL. He was part of the Alberta Junior Hockey League. And 2 players that have had kind of, nowhere near what Cale Makar's breakout is, but you have Blankenberg from the University of Michigan, the captain there, also came from the AJHL. He wasn't a National Development Program player. He didn't come from major junior. They both went the Division I route, and one took a little longer, one took a little bit of a more direct route there. So it's interesting to see that, one of the comments that came up, and I guess this is what I'm trying to push to, one of the comments that came up about Cale is he's an outlier. Absolutely, he's an outlier. He's an outlier for the NHL model player. We know that the model right now is still mostly coming out of the OHL, WHL, and the USHL, primarily through the National Development Program in the United States. And then you've got, Sweden, and you've got a couple other countries that are producing, you still have Russian players, you still have Finnish players, you have Swedish players coming from the European model. But what's interesting about this is the word outlier kind of sparked me. And I went, is he really an outlier? Or is it just the fact that, everything timed up right for him. Now, I was very fortunate. I've seen him play live when he was in juniors. My son went into the league, the AGHL. My youngest son went into the league the year after. I believe it was the year after he had left. So it's still a lot of buzz. He came out of the Brooks Bandits, unbelievable program. But the question that I pose is he an outlier? Is he an outlier because he played in the AJ, or is he an outlier because on the other side he's just an unbelievable talent? No matter where he was going to be at, he shined. So I started looking at this, and I'm gonna put up the statement on this that yes, he's an outlier for the NHL, but at the time I'm not sure that when he first got into the league, there was buzz about him already. But I don't think anybody knew he was going to, blow up to what, if everybody knew he was going to blow up the way he was, he'd have been the first round pick. I believe he was the 4th or 5th round pick. But when he came into the league, there was still speculation on, does Colorado take him, or does he drop a little bit? And there was still talk if Colorado was going to really take a chance on him at that level. Everybody knew he was going to go in the draft. It wasn't a question of him going in the draft. So I would contend that he was properly placed when he went to the AJ. That that team he was on was super competitive, well coached, and the league was extremely competitive at the time. It still is. And what he was able to do there, I'm not really sure that there could have been a better development ground for him. That league likes active and activating defensemen. That league likes to play both ends of the ice. You can get a little giddy up in your game up there, and see teams take off, and you can also see teams that try to lock down and play real tight defense. So because you've got a little bit of both, where not all leagues, you look at the WHL, it's a little bit of a different game. You look at the BCHL, it's a little different game. The AJ probably models the best for him for what he actually got and where he was developing. So I was just interested about that outlier comment. And so let me see your thoughts. I want to say hi to some people as we start to see people pop on here. Let's see. Greg, great to see you from Amherstburg. Don't forget to get there. You start in Detroit. You go across the bridge, turn right. You'll get there. You'll see him. Good to see you. Greg, you've been a long, long time participant. Great to see you. Go. Ask the question. I'll get back to the question in a second, but good to see you. Charles is on from Massapequa, New York. We've got somebody from Winston-Salem, and of course I only see on certain ones the Facebook emblem, depending on which platform you're on, because we broadcast to I think we're on 5 different Facebook platforms, 4 or 5 different Facebook platforms, and we're on YouTube platform, and we're on LinkedIn and Twitter, I believe, are the different platforms. So sorry I can't see that. We see another person. Oh, Dave's on. Dave is absolutely our longest member. Dave was number 2 in line after me when we started this whole project a few years ago. So good to see Dave on. It's always fun. And it's Jacob's on from Winston-Salem. Good to see you, Jacob. Thank you for popping on there. And as I check the other platforms real quick to see who else is saying hi, if I can do it fairly quickly, I will get on and say hi to some other people. I can't get it quickly, so I won't do it right now. I'll come back and check it as we go on. So anyway, a couple of things else. Once again, throw your questions up. I'll get into my topics as we go along to fill the space in between your questions. I'm going to jump right into a question because is it go? I'm not sure if that's the way, if it's Jojo or go. I don't know. Is it? Well, I don't know what the play is there, if that's a real name or if it's your stage name, but I like it. In the NHL, what are the percentage of kids chosen in main camps? Is a tendered kid favored over a non-tendered kid at a main camp? That's probably the best question that we can start with because we're right in the middle of main camp season. And I talk about this a lot on different, over the last few years. This question comes up a lot in different forms, but the answer is, what percentage of the kids are chosen in main camps? Well, your whole team's going to be picked there with some exceptions. So remember, right now there's a protected list that's the North American Hockey League has a protected list on their players. That protected list covers their returning players, their tenders, and their draft picks. So that number is set. It's locked. They carry that number into their main camp. At main camp, you're going to get all the tenders, which, remember, just use the number 10. That's a good, safe number. That's what each team will have there. Draft picks, we covered this last week. Remember, this was an extremely small draft. We've been seeing 320 kids taken the last few years each year, respectively. Now we're just over 200 kids that went in the North American Hockey League draft, and I'll put that down as a discussion because we'll hit that again. We need to hit that topic again. No, draft numbers. I want to just make sure I get back to that. So anyway, you get your tenders, your drafts, your veterans. You get your invited players. You get some affiliate players, and then you also get scout favorites. In other words, we just had a conference call with our scouts the other day, and we told all the scouts, hey, if you have one or two players favorite that you were pushing for that didn't get tendered or didn't get drafted, let's make sure we get them into main camp. And, of course, most of the scouts had already been working that angle to make sure those players are there. And why is it so important to get a main camp going? Well, I can tell you that almost every NAL team, if not every NAL team, will have at least 1, 2, 3 kids, maybe 4 or 5 kids that aren't draft picks, that aren't tenders make the team. So those free agents push the crowd, and you'll see a lot of younger players. You'll see some 05s and 06 in main camp. Why? Well, because they're going to be the future of the league at some point, and you want them to get the experience, and you want to see how they do against the talent, and you want to get to know the kid and let them see your program come down, see the facilities. So across the board. So the percentage of kids that come out of main camp is 100% except. Now, what happens in the fall is you're going to leave main camp with 30 kids. Okay, just use that number. I could be off 1 or 2 plus or minus, but use the number 30 coming out of main camp going into the fall. That's your team that you'll start that late August, September practices with as the season camp starts, or the season practices. Everybody moves in, you're all moved in with your billets, and the team starts. So let's say that's the first week of September that happens. Well, over the course of the next couple of weeks, the North American Hockey League asks you to trim your roster down. So you might have to trim down to 27. Now, remember, the same time that's happening, the same process is going on in the BCHL and the same process is going on in the USHL. So there is a trickle-down effect in the fall where a player may be solid on the roster when it's a 30-man roster, and then when it gets cut down to 27, the bottom starts moving up. So maybe if you're new to the league, you're getting closer to the bottom, or towards the bottom. Then if you add a player that drops from the BCHL league, or a player or two that drops from the USHL, you can see 2 or 3 extra players added in the fall as the trickle-down process happens. Now, that's the reality of any league that's in the competitive sides, and that trickle-down process actually happens from the NAL, when the NAL guys that don't make that final roster, that final roster of 25 is important. You got to go from there, but that also supplies fairly top-end players to the NCDC, to the USPHL Premier, to the NA3HL, and to the CGHL, because those players will populate those other leagues. And a lot of times that's a launching pad for a lot of players. So let's say I've got 2 years left in junior hockey, and I am a cut. I get cut at the second weekend to September from a North American Hockey League team. I get a few exhibition games under my belt. Maybe I even get a few season games under my belt. But that opens the door to a CCHL team. I go up and have a great year in the CCHL, and who knows where I end up going from there. Maybe I stay in the CCHL. Maybe I bounce back to the NAL. Maybe I end up in the AJ. But a lot of times that experience, that kickstart of being there, is what gets you to the next opportunity that opens the door. So there's 2 sides of this. The one side is, always try to have some outs before you get to main camp and have opportunities awaiting you. And on the other side of that, don't lock into those opportunities until you see how things launch after main camp or after the beginning of the season. because if you're not a player that feels like they're locked into the roster, if you're already in the exhibition season, if you're already seeing that you're going to be platooning in and out of the lineup, that's where you got to really make sure you have a backup plan in place just in case as the roster trims down to the regular season roster, you're ready to move to a place where you can play. And no, don't get me wrong, some teams will see if they can trade you. Some teams will actually help you by making a phone call or two for you. It depends on which organization you're with and how things are working. So, Gogo, I hope that helped. Let me know in the comments if that's anywhere near answering the question you had. And all right, we've got one here that says, Sweden has tightened the immigration rules for players, including from Russia. Do you think U.S. and Canada will restrict that will affect players coming from in to play juniors in college from Russia because of the war in Ukraine? I haven't heard anything official yet. I can tell you that it's a split 50-50. Hockey people are hockey people. They kind of like to keep politics out for the most part. I think that's the way most hockey people work. I think most leagues are trying to look at it that way. I have not had my ear to the ground on this one. I'll gladly start listening a little bit more to the sources I have inside of USA Hockey to see if there is any banging of the drum. The whole media push for the war in Ukraine seems to have slowed down a little bit, but I don't know the answer to that. I'll gladly look into it and see if I can get a better beat on that. But I have not heard of any Russian players that are already established in the USHL or NAL being banned. If anybody's heard anything on that, please throw it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I'm not up to speed on that one like I should be, but I'll gladly look into that and try to get an answer out there. I'll either post it or I'll do that on the next video. Gogo, thanks so much. Hey, that's a nice gun you're pointing there. What are you holding in the picture there? All I can see is a barrel. I can't pick out the handgun, so I'd like to know what you got there in your hands. All right, very good. So a couple other things. Conversations while we're waiting for some other comments to come on. And I'm looking around to see right now. Okay, so one of the things on the discussion board that came in this weekend and it got some great conversation going is the conversation over the GMHL, which is a non-Hockey Canada league that plays out of the Toronto metro area. The GMHL has had its ups and downs. The GMHL has had issues over the years. But I'm going to give you the answer that I give. People used to talk about the Western States League and how it's a horrible league and how, and the Western States League still exists. It's just now mostly north of the border. I'm not sure if they're going to have any American presence in the league this year. Maybe if you're involved, throw up a comment. I'd love to hear, what the amount is. But so the GMHL, what's the thought process on that league? Well, it allows players above the age of 21 to play. So, the league has very young players, and I'll gladly jump on and show you the GMHL here. And this is one of the things that is a concern. But I want to be very clear about something. When I talk about the GMHL, I don't say anything here that I wouldn't say anywhere else. And I'm going to switch my display over to secondary display so you can see it. And I have to get rid of that little thing there, which I can do. Just give me a second to remove that. And we're not going to worry about that. That overlay is going to stay there. Okay, so this is the GMHL. And the one thing I want you to see is if we go down and we scroll down, it gives you some stats about the league. The amount of Americans in the league is fairly thin. 3% of the league is American. Well, I'm sorry, 3% is American, 5%, almost 6% is Russian. The rest is Canadian. So it's not really a du jour for American players. They do reach out to a very, very big amount of American players. But I wanted to go down here and show you oldest in the league. you've got 22-year-olds, not 21-year-olds like in a regular junior league. These are kids that can turn 22 in this league because they allow that one extra year. But look at the bottom end. So you've got a 7-year difference. I think it's bad enough that you have in the null, you usually have 17 and 18 as the youngest years. And then you have 17 and 18 to 20. But, when you've got a league that's from 15 to 22, that's a big jump. So I'm showing you that there just so you get an idea of what the league's like. Now, what is my take on this league? I strongly believe that there's a place for every league in junior hockey. I think there's a need for every league unless they go out of business. If there's a demand for and customers want it, but this also has to be, you have to look at production and look at what the other side of things are. The other side of this is where's the production? Where do these players go? So let's jump back over there and take a look at that. If we look at this list, we can easily say, 2. I know I can pull it up by team, but I thought I could pull it up here. Okay, here we go. Here's where the players are going. These are the transactions. So they're going to, low-level ACHA, other teams. They're going to Europe. The Adrian College is their ACHA team. They're going to some Canadian college programs. I'm not sure if McKendree is a U Sport program or not. Purdue University is an ACHA program. That's a college club team. But what you don't see on there of all these lists of players is you don't see these players moving on to the USHL. You don't see them moving on to the AJHL for the most part, and you don't see them moving on to, play in the North American Hockey League. So, yes, there's a place for this. And is it a possible can you actually produce players in this league that can go over in Europe and play in a Swedish Tier 3 level, which is not a paid level? They might pay for your housing. They might pay for some of your equipment. And could you play in one of the adult leagues in Sweden and have a great time and maybe take some online classes and enjoy your time? Yeah, you could go over and play in Europe in this league. This league is really kind of designed for that. It's not designed to get you to college hockey. So when you look at a team like this, just be very concerned about a couple things. You can have kids in that locker room that are still thinking about Santa Claus, and then you got the other side of the room that's thinking about Santa Claus's helpers, if you know what I mean. So, just be careful. I'm not knocking this league and saying stay away from it. There's been enough people that have commented online about certain things with owners and certain things with financial situations. I think any league outside of your top leagues, you're always going to have those. And to be honest with you, even your top leagues can have a team that gets into financial trouble. In other words, they don't have a fan base. They have new management. They lose a coach. A lot of things can happen. So I'm not really sure I would attack them that hard. Just like I don't attack the WSHL. I don't attack the USPHL Elite. All those leagues have a purpose and a place. And I just think that that's important that we know that. But do your homework. Put your time and effort into to the homework side on this. So I hope that helps a little bit. Danielle from South Carolina, from Colorado, soon to be South Carolina. Good to see you on. Let's see. Question came in. Heard anything more about the new Tier 1 league? Nope, haven't heard much about it. There's not much talk going on about it. So let's see this one here. We'll get to another question here. My son, an 05, just finished his first year in the NA3, but has been getting a lot of interest from AAA team. Is it better, easier to get to the null via the NA3 or AAA hockey? Okay, so that's a great question. The NA3 has an advantage over other leagues of their type, because the NAHL has to draft and has to tender players from that league. And many of the NAHL teams have an NA3 team that they either own or have a relationship with. So there can be players that can be pulled up during the year. So there is a good relationship there. And it does work to an extent. It's a way to move into the league. So yes, that's a good way. However, when you go and play in a showcase, Tier 1 Elite showcase, a beast showcase, if you're playing in the HPHL, the likelihood of you being in front of D1, D3, NAHL, USHL teams, and just a ton of advisors that are well connected in the world, that all talk, that all get a sense of players, and a lot of them will bounce players back and forth. What do you think of this kid? What do you think of that kid? So those numbers are astronomical compared to an NAHL game. Now the NA3 will get attention at the Blaine Showcase because there'll be a lot of NAHL people that'll watch games up there. Scouts will watch. We'll be up there. We'll watch those games. Not only our own team and see how they match up against other teams, but we'll watch other teams too. But there's during the rest of the year, it's limited on how many. The reason it's limited is because you have a coaching staff that's already interacting against the other teams. That's part of the NAHL staff in a way because they're part of the same organization. So we lean on our NA3HL staff to give us feedback and input on the NA3 level. So you get as much exposure. You get exposure in pockets, and it's good pockets in the NA3. You got an all-star game towards the end of the year. You got Blaine. You got playoffs. All those things are incredibly good, and they'll get you lots of looks. However, compared to the big boys, and what I mean by the big boys, the Tier 1 Elite, the HPHL, the AY, Beast. I'm probably missing somebody out there, but those leagues, they're just going to get you a better, well-rounded look from you. You'll never get a D1 guy for the most part. Although there was a D1 commit that came out of the East Coast, I think there was a D1 commit that came out of the NA3 goalie-wise in the last few weeks. So you'll get some, but rarely are you seeing that. One thing I did notice though is I'm going back and I'm looking at all of the different years. The 2016 first round picks. Tkachuk played Tier 1 Elite before he went to the National Development Program. Runyon played Tier 1 Elite before he went to the National Development Program. Jones, Tier 1 Elite before he went to HPHL, then the National Development Program. Thompson actually played in the USPHL as U16 level. Frederick played in the Tier 1 Elite League. So just in 2016, you can see it. 2015, Wierenski, Tier 1 Elite. Connor, Tier 1 Elite. One of the guy, my writing's horrible here. One of the guy that won the draft in the first round, Tier 1 Elite League. Now, the majority of these guys went from the Tier 1 Elite League to the National Development Program, but my point is 2013, Tier 1 Elite, Tier 1 Elite, Tier 1 Elite, Tier 1 Elite. I don't get paid by that league, but I can tell you that's the league that gets exposure. That's the league that gets watched by far more than any other league. Is it changed over the years? Yeah. HPHL has gotten stronger over the last few years. They're top 2 or 3 teams. And the Beast has gotten stronger on the East Coast. So, has it changed a little bit? It sure has. But, 2012, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 first rounders, Americans. And I'm sorry, I should have clarified. I'm only looking at the Americans right now. 1, 2, 3 Tier 1 Elites. And then Minnesota High School was one kid went straight to the OHL at a young age. So 2011, we had a Tier 1 Elite. And out of 4, one was a Tier 1 Elite. So there's a consistent pattern there of players coming from all over the nation utilizing that league before the National Development Program, before the OHL, before they move on to other leagues to play at a higher level. Mostly, the vast majority of Americans are going to the National Development Program if they're that first-round category kid, okay? And that's at 17, they're already being earmarked. Okay, very few kids over the last 10 years in the first round have come, kids, young players, men, whatever you want to call them, have come outside of the National Development Program for the U.S. players. But you do see a fraction, 10, 15%, I would say, and that's just an estimate. I'm still in the middle of researching this, do go from the National Development Program right to the OHL. They don't go to college. And you've had a few rare outliers that jump right from the National Development Program into the NHL. So, the question, I know I got all over the place because this was an NA3HL question, but being in the right league is important. And if you can play in a AAA, U16, U18 AAA league, the NA3 is still going to be there. The NA3 is still an option, and I think it's a great option for many players. It's also, there's so many things that come into play. Demographics, where do you live? How many players are around you? Can you get to games? Can you get to a league? Do you want to stay at home? Do you want to live on the road? What is your physical body size? What's your maturity level? What's your academic situation? Can you handle being on a junior team already at that age, or do you need to, back it down a little bit where there's a little bit more structure and a little less of the on the road bus trip? Once again, you're in a situation where maybe that gap isn't as big as the GMHL, but you still have the gap of very young 05s. Remember, there's only going to be a handful, less than 6 to 10 05s in the NAHL this year. At the NA3, you see more 05s playing, but you still have overagers. You'll still have those kids that are right this year will be 02s. So that gap of what an 02 does on their free time versus what an 05 does, or an 06 for next year does, that's a big gap. So it's like watching the movie Slapshot, where they bring in the three brothers that are still playing with cars. There's a reason it was written that way. It's because rookies coming out of juniors are young, and they look at the world different than a veteran does. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I appreciate the question. So it comes up, Michael puts up here, I looked into Instat and RinkNet after last week's discussion. Seems like you have to have a subscription, or am I wrong? Absolutely. I made that very clear. If I didn't, I've done it many, many times on here. That's a backdoor system for the NHL, for the AHL, for a lot of European programs, for most junior programs, USHL, NOL. I believe the USPHL is going that way this year. I don't know if that's true. Most of your Canadian junior league programs are using this, and a lot of 16 and 18s, prep schools and high schools use these programs. Yeah, this isn't something that you that's why I was showing it to you, to kind of give you a sense of how much more in depth scouting and recruiting is with the backdoor tools that aren't available to parents, and it's built that way and designed that way on purpose. Parents will manipulate the system. Elite prospects every once in a while will throw out an email explaining what another crazy parent did, where excuse me, where a parent, sorry about that, where a parent actually fabricates a league for their player to get statistics, or fabricates a whole team, submits all this information, and of course they vet it out. So yeah, it's really not made for that side. But I wanted you to understand a little bit and see how thorough you can look at kids, and how detailed you can get into. You can look at their giveaways. You can look at their production on how they get the puck out of the zone, their turnovers, their best plays, their worst plays. I mean, there's so many categories that you can break down and look at a kid to get just it right inside of how they play the game. Super, super important tool. Video has become much more, scouting used to be a much more paper game as far as statistics and notes from scout to scout. Now scouts can look at the same player at the same time via Zoom, break the game down in 10 different ways. There's literally times where we'll have a whole staff meeting where one player jumps out and everybody looks at him and goes, I like that. Look at that guy. And then one guy will go, hold on, and they'll pull up a different category on the video where all of a sudden the player looks completely different. And maybe it's D-zone coverage, maybe it's turnovers, maybe it's how many times he gets hit during a game, and how he responds to getting hit. There's so many different things. So very helpful tool. And if I wasn't clear on that, I know I've been clear in other videos in the past. Sorry about that. So, okay, let's see. So, hello from North Carolina. My 07 goalie wants to play juniors with the goal of playing college. Where do we even start? Well, the good news is I do starter packs of videos. You got to go to our Junior Hockey Advisor YouTube page, and there's videos, short ones and long ones, breaking down all the things you need to know. And they're not sequenced. However, jump on our discussion group and go to our last welcome. We just welcome new members there. And I think we put a starter pack up of videos, and that's a good place to start because it gives you the basics. And then from there, using this tool, jump on and use our YouTube page. If you use YouTube page, please, folks, please like and subscribe us on YouTube. That makes a huge difference for us as we try to grow this. So where do you start? That's where you start. You're in 07. You got plenty of time. Remember, the age out year right now in juniors is 02. That means that the 2002s are the group that are in their last year of juniors. So if you don't understand, I'll do it this way just to show you. Let's take a league. Pick a league, any league. What league have we not used lately? Let's use the NCDC. I'll use this league now. I didn't do this ahead of time, so I don't know how this is going to go. But let's just jump down and see their breakdown of youngest to oldest. So, here we go. Breakdown of youngest to oldest, 16-year-olds. So they don't have any 15-year-olds in that league. Remember, they're unregulated by USA Hockey, so they can run at any age they want that they deem or they set for themselves. So, I didn't put you guys into this screen. Sorry. Let me put you into the screen. Okay, so one of the things you can do is you can go back up here and you can sort the league. And this is a really nice tool here. I can go in here and I can say I want to see this league by age. Did I do that right? I don't think I did that right. All ages. Okay, here we go. So now I can go and look at the, I can pull it up a couple. I can do it by birth year. So I'm gonna just hit. Why won't it let me do birth year here? Oh, I know why. Because I'm not signed in. Let me sign in here for a second, and then I'll run you through this. So now I can actually go in here, and I know I'm scrolling really fast. I don't know why it jumped to that screen. Let me do this again. NCDC. Not being signed in did not help me because now I got to kind of roll again. So I go past the league itself where it shows you how they ended up the year. I go down to player stats. I hit the green button that brings up a filter up here. Now I can go into birth year and I can say, let me look at 2000. So you're in 07. Let's use the 2006s that have been last year's equivalent to you. And let's see how many players they had in the league. So they don't allow or didn't have any 06s. I can do that with a bunch of other leagues too. I can do that with, we've talked about the GMHL. And there's a restriction on the league as far as underage players, and Hockey Canada has that. So if I go to the GMHL, I can go down and do the same thing. And I can click on the players. I can go into birth year, type in 2006. I'm probably not going to see much here. Let's apply that filter. And so last year they had 8 players and 1 goalie. You see there's 3 goalies, but only 1 actually played. Up here, as far as games played, you can tell that these players, since they only got 2, 5, 1, 1, 1, all these young kids, they were brought up to get the experience for a game or two. That's it. So the point is, and if I do that for the North American Hockey League, NAHL, I do the same thing, same process here. I go down, player stats, click on the green button, and I go in here and put 2006 I already know what the answer is, but I do this so you can see it too. Guess what? Nobody. If I go in and put up a 2005 and apply a 2005 filter into the league, we got one kid that played 26 games as an 05, and we had two goalies got 2 games in, and a couple other kids got called up for a few games. That's it. So you had 5 kids, 6, 7 kids, but actual players that played, you had one kid total in the league played as an 05 last year. So, and then if we go to 04, you'll start seeing the numbers, move up. Now you start getting into 04s. Now we're getting into serious numbers for the North American Hockey League. 102 players were 04s. So there's a big cutoff. Last year, 01, 02, 03, 04 in the league. But still, of that 100 players, 100 forwards, because our goalies are down here separate. But of those 100 players, if I go over here and I sort that by games to see how many actually played of those 100 04s, let's just let that sort for a second. There we go. Now we can see, whatever your cutoff is, of the whole season, I would probably say that anybody that didn't get, 15 games or more, if we start looking into this range down here, we can see that only 40 kids of 04s played 15, 17, 20 games or more, that the vast majority of those guys got anywhere from 1 to 5 games in on that list. So 60 players got 1 to 5 games in of those North American Hockey League players at the age of 04. So I only say this so you guys can get a sense of A, how difficult it is to play at the higher levels when you're young, and B, you got time. You just got time. That's all there is to it. When you're right now, if you're at 05, 06, 07, time's on your side. It won't always be on your side, but it's on your side right now. Okay, so I hope that helped a little bit. Let's jump on and see. We got one more question coming in from Gogo. Let's see what he says. One more question, if I may. You may. What do you think of the NA3 league with an NAHL affiliate as far as getting kids that aren't quite ready for the null? Do these kids really get a chance to move up? I think I answered that. I'll throw that out there again. Yes, you get opportunities. There will be NAHL players that were in the NA3. You'll get an opportunity to be tendered and drafted. You'll get an opportunity to be invited to a main camp, and there'll be NA3 players in the league. It's just like any other tier 3. Your numbers are going to be limited because where do the majority of players from the North American Hockey League come from? Look at the draft. The draft, and I hope, if I've got it handy here, I will give you, out of all my notes, do I have my draft notes on the table? Okay. Here's the North American Hockey League draft. 200 and just over 200 players. Don't quote me on the exact number, but it was just over 200. 48 of those players came from Canadian juniors. Okay, that's 25% of your draft is coming from Canadian juniors. 30 players came from U18. The North American Hockey League, I think on their draft they complied, which means every team got a pick. What are we at? 30 teams now, so they all complied. The USHL got 20 picks, prep school 18. So you look at where the vast majority of those players come from, though, it's coming from juniors. Canadian juniors and the USHL and other junior and Euro junior, between other junior programs and Euro juniors. And what's other juniors? That's the NCDC for the most part. There's 30 players come from the NCDC in Europe, and 48 players coming from from Canadian juniors, and then you got 20 dropping down from the USPHL. There's 100 kids right there. Half your draft is coming from other junior programs. So yes, you can still stay in the NA3 because if you add the NA3 number into that means 130 players are coming from junior programs. The only thing you have to be concerned about is one is a complied with draft pick or tender, which means the NA3HL, If I'm coming from the CCHL or I'm coming from the AJ, I could be a top scorer. So, it's not a fair comparison to compare a kid coming from the AJ and a kid from the NA3. Even in the draft, you'll see an NA3 kid that might have got picked higher in the draft than a BCHL kid or a kid coming out of the AJHL or a kid coming out of the USHL. And you think, oh, that kid must be really good. Well, remember, it's usually a null team when they make their last pick. Their team's last pick might be in the third round. So you might get a null player, or an NA3HL player picked in the third round, where a USHL player might go in the 8th or 10th round. That has nothing to do with the talent level, because clearly a USHL player, 99.9% of the time is always going to be better than the NA3 player. There's different pedigree, different background, different competitive level, and everything that goes along with being in the USHL. So yes, there is opportunity there. Yes, there'll be plenty of players that come out of that league that play in the NA3, or in the NAHL. I apologize, because when I'm throwing those terms around, I can confuse you. I confuse myself sometimes on this too. But you got to consider that they're competing against some really, really good leagues. NCDC is a good league comparatively. Your BCHL is a good league. USHL is a really good league. In the rest of your CGHL programs, your AJHLs, your CCHLs, all those leagues are good. So yes, you can move up, but it's all relative to who you're comparing yourself to. And remember, making a team coming out of main camp is great. It's phenomenal. It can help launch you. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be on the team in the fall, because there's going to be a couple trim downs, and you need to be ready to catapult that experience onto a good team, moving past that. So Mark says, hi from New Hampshire. Good to see you. Greg's got a question. He says, in the various U.S. junior leagues, do the players pay for their billet, or does the team? That's a great question. Who pays for billets? Okay, so USHL is the only, Tier 1 hockey is the only league that covers everything. They cover your billets, they cover your equipment, they cover your team fees. The North American Hockey League covers anything dealing with a team. So they cover your equipment, they cover your sticks, but they do not cover your billet fee. You get into the BCHL now. Correct me, any BCHL people out there, before the pandemic, the BCHL covered everything. I've heard that there's some tuition involved now that might have only been during the pandemic, but tuition and billeting changed a little during the pandemic. And the AJ used to be, everything was covered in the AJ too. It used to be your fee was covered and your billet fee was covered. That may have changed too. Once we came out of the pandemic, some economic models changed. Some of these teams had to take advantage of adding a tab onto the players a little bit to keep this functioning as a overall junior organism. Our whole junior world had to change a little bit, and so hopefully that helps, Greg. But really, in the U.S., there's only one league, and that's the USHL. So that's that. John Sondegger says, hi from my favorite city in Ohio. I do not have a favorite city in Ohio. Go Blue. All right, let's see. Greg says, what do you think of the non-sanctioned junior leagues in Canada? Okay, I just covered this. Greg, you must have jumped on a little late. We spent about 10 minutes on this early in the live stream. Maybe you can pick it up on the rebroadcast. As soon as we're done, I'll throw it up, and there's a rebroadcast there. But I think I hit that pretty thoroughly on the thought process. Here's a good one. How do you prepare for coaches reaching out at a showcase? We were not prepared to be contacted as much in-person meetings requested. It was a bit overwhelming. Thinking we would need to reach out in advance to get coaches to get on coaches' watch list. So we felt a little unprepared. Okay, that's a great one, Danielle. Thanks for that. That happens all the time. You go to some of the major showcases. You get into the Chowder Cup. You get into the pre-draft showcase or the pre-draft in Boston. Yeah, there's one in Colorado. There's one in one good one in Tennessee. You get into some of these events, they're heavily attended by Tier 3 programs. Remember that it's dog eat dog out there to fill a Tier 3 junior program. It gets a little easier in the fall because you get your trickle downs from the other leagues. But, these teams are competing hard to fill out, and remember, Tier 3 carries up to 30 players. Now, they can only roster or put on the official USA Hockey roster. I believe the number is 25. They can be protected. I can be corrected there. I haven't coached or GM'd on a Tier 3 team in a few years, so 25 or 27 is going to be the number. But they might carry more. They might carry up to 30 players. That's not uncommon at Tier 3. Finding 30 players that are competitive for a team is tough. So when you're at these showcases and you see somebody you want to dance quick with them and get them on the dance card and talk to them. So how do you deal with it? Well, I think you learned a lesson. Now it won't happen to you again that you won't be prepared, so you'll be prepared next time. However, if they're reaching out to you, make sure a few things. The first thing is make sure that if you get called out of a locker room, you don't come out half dressed with a towel around you and no shirt on. Take the time to take your shower, put on your nice shirt or decent looking clothes that you wore, because if you're at a showcase, you're showing up not like every other kid with your hat on backwards with a chew in and with your cut off jean, your Daisy Dukes on. And your flip flops. No, show up. It can be in your shorts, but look like you're going to the golf course. Look like you're going out with the family for dinner in a summertime resort area. Throw on a collared shirt. Throw on a nice pair of shorts. If it's colder, put a pair of pants on and look decent. The players that come out of the locker room and take their hat off as soon as they want to talk to me goes a long way. And it might not be enough to get them on the team, but I remember that stuff. I look at how they look. So first of all, make sure you're prepared to walk out of the locker room. If you don't think your son is ready to talk to a coach by themselves, just tell the showcase coach, say, hey, look, if any coaches want to talk to my son, have them come up to the lobby and we'll talk to them together. And that's usually pretty accommodating. That way the showcase coach goes, you want to talk to Johnny in there? Let's meet up, or Johnny will meet you up in the lobby, and his parents are up there too. They'd like to meet you too. So in that way, you get a chance to kind of triangulate on the questions, and then ask the questions you need to ask. Ask about the roster. Ask about the fees. Ask about the travel. Ask about what kind of team travel bus they have. Do they own their own? Do they lease their bus? Ask about the billeting situation. What's the max? Here's a great question to ask. Here's a great question for everybody to ask. What billet has the most players, or what house has the most players from last year? Coach, can you tell me what billet, mom or dad, or what house had the most players? And if he goes, we have a hockey house. As soon as they say we've got a hockey house, that usually means little supervision, and you've got kids from 16 to 20 years old, some turning 21. And, there are teams out there that put 6, 10, 12 guys at a hockey house. Usually bad news. It's not a dorm. It's usually unsupervised. And if it is supervised, it's usually with a 22 or 23-year-old assistant coach. It's not a good situation. I'm not picking on any one program. I'm not using an example of any one program. This is just my experience over the years. Hockey house in juniors usually spells disaster. So ask that question. Be a little bit more prepared there. You can ask questions about their apparel. Some teams, they include the apparel in the tuition fee. Other teams make you buy an apparel package outside of that. Some, they give you the apparel and they want it back at the end of the year. So they'll give you a team suit. At the end of the year, you got to give it back. So ask all those questions. Those are good. I'm sure you'll get through it. Now you've had the experience once, you'll get through it. Let's see. The question came in about Chowder Cup. Is the Chowder Cup, does it have a scouting presence? Who's there watching? Mostly Tier 3 teams or East Coast. So the Chowder Club's changed over the years, and I've talked a lot about this too on broadcast. The Chowder Cup is still one of the best places to play in the spring and summer for exposure. Now the exposure's changed. Yes, you do get some people live there. Not anywhere near as much with the D1 and the D3 coaches. You'll get your drive-by coaches because you're in the middle of Boston. You can get any one of the Boston D1s that might to or from the school. They might stop on the way to work. They might stop on the way back to work. They might jump over at their lunch hour, or they might come over for an hour or two during the day. But remember, the Chowder Cup has changed. These showcase teams have changed over the years. They've evolved into a full-time business for many, many of these teams. And these coaches now have the ear to D1, D3, and higher level junior teams, which never existed before. It used to be that Chowder Cup and all these other these spring showcases, it was a dad that picked up the team and put a team together from their local area. So here in Rochester, one of the dads of a good player would go, hey, I want to put a team together for Chowder Cup. They would, the buddies would all get together. They'd all go down and get a hotel room, play in the weekend, and they would, get the $10 jerseys made up for the weekend, or they'd borrow jerseys from their team or wherever but it was very, very low key. And you had a lot of coaches there watching, but there was not much as far as structure on the team organization side. That is completely different now. Now that it's full-time, some of these teams practice. Some of these teams show up with full uniforms. Some of these teams have, a first team, a second team, and a third team. And the guys running the programs have the ear. They either work as an advisor or they actually work in one of the leagues, the USHL, the North American Hockey League, and they've got the ear to a lot of coaches. So instead of a coach from a D1 program, let's say Ferris State or Bowling Green, making a trip out to watch the Chowder Cup, they may be having one kid they really want to see that they're trying to make a decision on. But what they'll do is they'll get on the phone and they'll talk to people that are coaching the teams. Hey, what players you got? Who's looking good? Can you give me some video on that guy? Can you give me some video? So, and it's a two-way street. That guy too might have a player on his team where he just breaks out during the Chowder Cup. He's making phone calls too, because he either works as an advisor or he just wants to make sure his program grows. If he can help get a kid into a college program, that used to be crazy to even think about, that your showcase coach could help you get into college. Maybe as a reference, maybe, 5-10 years ago was a different world. Now those guys have the ear of junior programs. They have the ear of D1 programs, and they can be a big influence, if not one of the main influences, to move you on to the next level. So hopefully that helps. But yeah, there is absolutely the ability to move on and to get exposed at those teams. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Let's see what else we got here. Just checking to see if there's any on the other platforms real quick. And people want to talk about the Red Wings. The reason why I want to talk about the Red Wings is the last two times that Colorado won the Cup, the team that won the Cup the next year was the Detroit Red Wings. So if you're a Red Wings fan, you're pretty excited right now. You're looking at this just going, this is awesome. Colorado won, and now it's our turn. So, okay, so I covered a lot of topics tonight. I'm just going to go over my list. Hey, there's one video that I pulled up. I told you earlier on, I was looking at old videos as we try to clean them up. And I want to pull this video up and show you this video because I think it's probably one of our better videos. This video was our, I didn't mean to pull a picture of my face up on there, but this is our politically correct advice video. I will throw this up again. And the reason I think this is important is because we talk about a lot of things that don't get talked about. Bad people make good hockey teams. I explain what that means. Late bloomer is not a strategy. I explain what that means. I get into
about the sport for 14 or 15 years.
A list here as I'm going along.
If they're good enough,
they
they'll
will
find you.
not find you. This is a
Using the
misnomer
boat as
that
much
goes
as we
way
used
back.
to. Sitting in the driveway all the time. I decided to market the boat.
Myself.
I decided
You
to
don't
put
need
signs.
to see two of me. There you go. Who's better looking, the old Jeff or the new Jeff? I think the glasses make me much more appealing. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's nice to say. Hey, this whole notion, and this came up again, every once in a while, we get salty veterans, which are awesome as part of our discussion group. We've got
parents and coaches, and we've got advisors, and we've got all these people that are part of this vibrant group. We just went over 7,000 in our discussion group. That discussion group has more knowledge than 100 people like me combined, because there's so much knowledge there. But there's one conversation that just drives me nuts. And thank you. I got to put that up. The old Jeff or the new Jeff? The new Jeff. Thank you. I can only see Facebook users. It's probably best that I don't know who you are, because I'd probably start stalking people that think I'm seeing what you're doing in your life because you think I look better now. You don't want that. So it's best that I just know Facebook user. But getting on to, they're not going to come find you unless you're in the right place at the right time. Okay? Nobody has the time to go out and find you as a player. And what do I mean by that? If you think that you dropping down to tier 2 is best for you, maybe it is best for you. But don't expect to have any people looking for you there. I'll give you a perfect example. My nephew, who is now an AHL assistant coach, he was the number 1 overall draft pick in the USHL. I'm sorry if I bore you, because I brag on the kid every once in a while. He's 6'5". He played at over 220 pounds, played at Ferris State, 2 national championships, one at U16, one at U18, led the team in scoring. Unbelievable resume. Okay? Did not get any attention until his last year of U18. Why? Because before he went 16, 18 at Little Caesars, he played 1 year at AA. And why did he play AA? He was in Honeybake. He was a thriving member of a really strong Honeybake team. Well, Detroit has this funny thing where they're like lemmings. At the end of the year, everybody bolts. And when the people bolt, they're either putting side deals together to protect themselves, or they've got 2 or 3 people that they want to go with, and they go with that. And if you're not one of the parents that are in the stands playing the politics, and you're just just going to watch your kid play, and you're not involving yourself with the background of things, you can get you can be stuck holding the bag. And he and a couple other kids got stuck holding the bag. The Honeybake program went in a whole different direction. They're out. So he went and played AA hockey. He got no looks when there were players on that team. Cam Fowler was a part of that team. They were actually being recruited into the OHL that next year. I think he was drafted. And that didn't happen for my nephew. He had to go to U16. Fortunately, he was a good player, so he got under the Little Caesars team, won a national title. My only point there is nobody was going to watch that AA game. Even though he was a great player, nobody went and watched those games. He had to work his way out of that situation. This notion that if you're good enough, yes, I guess there is that one player somewhere that somebody's going to, you're going to see it's going to be like the old baseball movies where the baseball scout's driving his old pickup down the road and looks out in the farm field and, sees a player pitching a ball at 100 miles an hour and stops and signs the guy. 2 weeks later, he's playing for the Yankees. Okay. That might work in the movies, and maybe it works in baseball, but it doesn't work in hockey. You've got to put yourself in spots. And how do you know what the spots are? It's easy. Do what I'm doing right now with the NHL. I'm working backwards to find out where all those players came from. Do that with colleges. Do that with junior teams. Work backwards to see where their roster comes from. You rarely see somebody that comes from AA hockey. I know one guy that played in the North American Hockey League that was 2 years out from playing on a AA team. I didn't think he'd make it. He did. He had a successful 2 years, got better, and actually played a really big role on an all team this year. But it doesn't happen very often. You have to put yourself in the best leagues you can get into. And then if you can get into a good league, you want to get on the best team. Why? I'll give you that example again. You walk into a showcase. Where do 90% of the college coaches go that are just coming in off the street to watch games? They've got their program. Maybe they've got a few emails of kids, and maybe they got 2 or 3 kids they want to watch, but they're there for the whole weekend. They're going to watch games. Do they go watch the 45th place team play the 53rd place team on rink 8 in Blaine? Or do they go watch the number 2 team play the number 8 team, or the number 1 team play the number 4 team? That's the games they're going to watch. Why? Because they know those teams are well coached. They know there's a lot of talent there because those teams are doing really well. So you have to put yourself as close to that as you can. Not everybody can play on the number one U18 or U6 team in the nation. But if you can't, you go to the next team. If you can't make that, you go to the next team. But you got to try to get into those good leagues. You got to try to get into situations that's going to help you move forward. So that's it. That's my soapbox. I'm done with that. But I'll put that other video up. I really think that's an important one, the politically incorrect video. I think there's a lot of information you can get there, and it'll give you a little bit different perspective on how to look at things. I believe in selfish players. Watch that video. You can see why. And if you like the video, put some comments on, like and subscribe, and help us out. I hope this helped everybody. I appreciate the audience coming on. We had a good audience tonight, and hopefully we'll get the same kind of audience and reviews. Remember, if you're not part of our discussion group, jump on. The only shameless plug I'm going to throw out there is, if you're in an impasse, if you're at the crossroads right now and you don't know what to do, go to our website, Junior Hockey Advisor. You can go onto a chaos call. You can sign up to have a 1-hour conversation with me. We can discuss the problem. We can work out whatever it is. You can have an advisor already. You can be working without an advisor, or maybe it's struggling on how to hire an advisor. But you can go on to juniorhockeyadvisor.com, click on our chaos call. You can jump on and get in a conversation with me. We can schedule it out. We got to do it quick, though, because on the 9th, I leave for Europe for a couple weeks, and I'll get back to you after that if we don't get together before that. Have a great night, everybody. Take care. Loved talking with you tonight.